Hello there. So today I'm going to talk about coming to in the hospital, waking up during surgery, and coma dreams that I've had. So let's see, where should I start? Well, first off, if you want to support me or the channel, the links are in the description. So don't feel obligated, but if you want to, you can. So I will start with the accident. The first memory that I have, I'm going to try to do this in order, okay? It's kind of difficult for me. Was it was like my spirit left my body, and just so you know, I didn't know what was going on at this time, but I saw myself. Well, I was in the back seat of the truck, and I could see my son, and he had his eyes closed, and he was kind of like moaning, like, and I just told him that I loved him very much and that he was going to be okay. To this day, I don't know if that's something my brain made up, or if my spirit left my body, or what. I have no idea. The second memory is I remember waking up in the truck and kind of looking around, not realizing that everything's damaged, but looking around and thinking, wow, I fell asleep in my truck. And I look out the windshield and there's a man saying, no, no, just relax. You're going to be okay. We're going to get you out of here. And I was in such a beat up state that I just went back to bed, went back unconscious, I guess. So those are the two memories of being in the, like, right after the accident. Another memory I have is them pulling me out of the truck and screaming from the pain. I think they might have broke my ankle. They had to break it to get me out, because when I went back to the truck, and the junkyard, my shoe was attached and I could not pull it out. They couldn't pull it out. So I think they probably had to break my ankle to get me out. So I remember they pulled me out and I started screaming in pain. And I said, well, what about my son? And they said, well, he didn't make it. And I remember just like screaming like you would not believe. And I passed out. Or went back unconscious. And I had pretty much that same experience. I think when I arrived at the hospital, where they were taking me out of the ambulance, and I asked again for my son, and this woman told me that he didn't make it. And I remember screaming and freaking out. And at this time, I think the news was already hitting the internet, so some people weren't treating me very nice because they thought that I was drunk or that I had something to do with it. So let me explain this so it kind of help. All the visions that I got during the hospital was always like, it looked like it was from the 40s, 50s, 60s. It looked very mid-century modern. I don't know why, but a very kept up mid-century modern. This is the theme that I kept seeing when I was coming out and coming to and things like that. So I remember waking up or coming conscious. I might have been in surgery, and one of the nurses saying, look, his jaw is broken or his chin is broken and you can see the piece of bone. I remember telling her, my jaw is fine. I don't know what you're talking about. And I went to try to touch my chin, and these two female nurses had their hands pressing my hands against the bed, so I couldn't move. I remember there was a male nurse, or he might have been a doctor. I was trying to tell him, like, please don't let them. I don't know what's going on, but you need to help me. I don't know what these ladies are doing. And then an Asian woman who I know now was the ER doctor that was in control of the whole. She was in control of the ER, and when I was in ICU, I remember her coming and saying, hey, we're going to give you some pain meds and we're going to put you out. You're going to be okay. And I went back unconscious. When I started to come to a bit, coming in and out of the ICU, this Mexican nurse comes in my room, a male, and he's upset about something. So he closes the door behind him, and he like there's like a light switch that you hit it and it turns the glass very opaque, so you can't see through it. So he hits that so nobody can see what he's doing, and he starts throwing all these herbs around me, and he puts some kind of like satanic or witchcraft symbol underneath my pillow. And I remember praying like, God, I don't know what the hell this man's doing, but you need to protect me from what he's doing. And looking back now, I think that some of it was probably ICU psychosis, because I mean the guy wouldn't get away with something like that. And so that was another experience I had. Another experience I had was I was moved many, many times to a different room. And I'm not talking about getting x rays done and all that. This is much later. I'm already in ICU. All that's pretty much already done, other than the MRIs and the CAT scans. So they kept moving me to a different room for this and that. And then at one time they put me like on a porch outside. And it was weird. They just moved me around a lot. And when we came back to the hospital, when it was all over, I came and I brought donuts to all the nurses and doctors to say thank you. My wife showed me the room that I was in, and she told me I never moved, other than like if they were giving me an MRI or something. So they never put me outside. They never put me from room to room. That was just something my head was making up. Either that or it was a coma or, like I said, some kind of ICU psychosis. Now, with the coma dreams, I'm going to try to get these in order too. The earliest coma dream I remember was I was in Mexico. At the time, I did go to Mexico a lot, pretty much every Thursday or every other Thursday. So I was in Mexico and I had gotten into a fender bender, and I was inside of the like this big, I guess what's called like the lounge area of a hotel, and I was walking around, and then I run into a good friend of mine. I'm like, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, hey, what are you doing here? I was like, well, I broke down. I was like, where are you going? He's like, well, I'm going home now. I was like, can I go with you? And he's like, yeah, sure. And that's one of my, my coma dreams. This guy got me out of Mexico, which, just me in a coma or dreaming. But these coma dreams, they felt just like this. I mean, they were extremely real. It's hard to explain to somebody who hasn't had one. It's not a lucid dream. It's so much more than that. You're there. It's like a different dimension or a different realm, something like that. So another incident I had was I was in this like mountain lodge, kind of like a big building where people are hanging out, drinking coffee, that sort of thing. And I'm with a friend of mine, and I see my landlord, who hasn't been very nice for the last couple of years. You'd ask him to fix like a faucet, and he just had such an attitude about it. He was really changing. He used to be such a nice guy, and all of a sudden he's just not nice. So I'm there with my friend. We're hanging out, drinking coffee, and I see my landlord like across the way. And this experience, I wouldn't say that there was an overwhelming feeling of peace or anything like that. It's not like a near-death experience in that sense, but I had a feeling that just everything's okay. Like there's nothing to worry about. Everything's okay. So I look across and I see my landlord, and I just kind of, nod to him and give him respect, and he kind of does the same. And I drink my coffee with my friend, and that was one of the experiences I had. Another experience I had was, I think I was in a park or something outside, and there's this young, very light complected Mexican woman, probably in her late 20s, early 30s. And I don't know why we're talking, but she randomly tells me that she thinks that I'm very, very attractive and very interesting. And I can feel like her aura, and she's just like the nicest, sweetest, most empathetic person in the world. And when she said I was attractive, she didn't mean in the sense of my looks, but just as me as a person. And she told me her name, and I remember when I when I got home, I was on Facebook looking her up, and there was nobody by that name. She didn't exist. Another experience I had was I'd be working doing my own thing with my business, and my mom, who lived with me, and my wife were moving to this new place in Claremont. I could take you to it. I could take you to where the place was at. It was like a mid-century house, but it was a rental, straight out of the '60s or '50s or '40s. Mid-centuries. I could draw you a diagram of it. It was pretty amazing, and it was cool to be in a new place. So when I left the hospital, I had asked my wife and my mom, so which place are we going to? Are we going to the new place or the old place? And like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, are we going to the new place that we're moving into? And my mom said, there's only one place. We only live in one place. And that was the beginning of, oh my God, what is real and what isn't? It really, really freaked me out. Another incident that I experienced was, and it's kind of like a sitcom where it just flashes to different scenes. That's kind of what this is all like. So I'm in this warehouse, and it's very organized, and there's people working. Feel that peace, like that I was talking about, where everything's kind of okay, but not that ultra peace that the near-death experience people talk about. And I'm talking with this guy, and he's my friend. He's been my friend for a long time, but I don't know who he is. Like now, I don't know who he is. He was my friend in this experience, and he's giving me the lowdown of the importing exporting coffee business. And he's explaining to me, showing me what people are doing, how the money comes in, where the coffee goes, and I'm very interested. And basically, he gives me a job offer, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'd love to do this. It's different, and I think I can bring something to the table with my experience. And then I ask him, so like, are we gonna taste the coffee? And he's like, yeah, and he pulls out this little thing that you just add water to, and drips down, and the coffee goes in. I'm not sure if this thing really existed, but it existed in this place that I was at. So when I started coming in and out at the hospital, I told my wife, I gotta go home. This Monday I have a job interview, but of course, it wasn't real. I'm not sure if I already said this, but when we came back to the hospital and I realized that there was just one room and all that I was experiencing wasn't real, I noticed that the hospital wasn't mid-century at all. It was extremely modern, and yeah, there was no hint of mid-century in any way, shape, or form. And even where my hospital room was, I don't see how I was seeing everything that I was seeing. When I was coming in and out, I kept seeing little kids, like toddlers, and they'd be in my room and they'd go underneath my bed and they'd hide. I saw this a lot for a while. Once I learned that my son passed away, it stopped. I didn't see them anymore. So, let's see, 1 second here. So, they had moved me to the regular part of the hospital. I was no longer in ICU. And my mom and my wife came. I already know that my son has passed on. I think it was like my mom and my wife would always come like at 8 o'clock in the morning and stay till about 10 p.m. at night with my son. So when they left, I'm trying to watch TV, and I'm bored, and I'm like, I need to get out of here. There's no reason why I need to be here. So I get in my wheelchair because physical therapy had taught me how to get off of the bed and how to sit down and how to get back on the bed, little things like that with my severely broken leg. So I got on my wheelchair and I started rolling myself out of the room. And a nurse tells me, where are you going? I was like, I'm just going to go for a little ride. Got to the elevator, bottom floor. And I'm just rolling, and I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted from rolling. And I find the exit, and I get to the exit, and the doors are closed. Use the exit at the opposite end of the building, which might as well be telling me to walk to San Diego from Las Vegas. It seems impossible, and my heart sinks. And that nurse shows up right behind me and says, let's take you back to your room, honey. And I was like, no, don't touch me. I'm going home. I want to go home right now. And she's like, okay. And another nurse comes with her, and it's just this little piece of paper. I thought it was going to be like like 20 pages I'd have to sign. No, it's just a little tiny paper. And I signed it, and I was outside in the May night, which was pretty cold, in my little, little thing, hospital gown they put over you. They already called my mom and my wife, so I didn't have to call them. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. My mom was pissed because, and heartbroken. Because I had 2 strokes, and she didn't want me to have another one, and she felt that I should still have been under hospital care for a while, and I don't have the meds that they want from me, but I wanted to go home. My son had passed away. The drugs are starting to wear off, and I just want to be home. I don't like being controlled at the hospital. You can't sleep. They're constantly waking you up to take your blood, and I understand that they're trying to keep you alive, but a lot of it's control. I don't want to be controlled. I just want to go home. So when they finally get there, I didn't realize how much energy it took to get out of the wheelchair and into a car, which is a little different than a bed. But I got in. And then when we started driving, that's when I asked my mom and my wife, which place are we going to? And they give me the devastating news that that new place doesn't exist. So that's when it starts to hit me like, well, what's real? What isn't? Like, what is going on? It's very, very weird. And then when we get to my place, I don't know how I'm going to get from, because we're in the alley, I don't know how I'm going to get inside my house. So we call my friend, my ex-brother-in-law, who's just one of the smartest guys in the world. He doesn't think he is, but he really is. To try to help me figure out how to help. My wife calls him to try to, hey, how do we get him in? So he comes over with nothing, just his car, and he grabs my office chair, which has wheels, and he has me sit in it, and he brings me inside the house, and then I use my walker for about 10 steps to get on the couch where I'm going to be for a couple days. And that was my experience coming home. Those are some of the visions that I had. I'm pretty sure there's more, but it's really hard to think about them. Some of it got erased, like that I think she was an angel that I met. I remembered her name, and I remember looking her up on my friend's Facebook, and she didn't exist. And then within like a month, I completely forgot her name. So that experience of my son, he was in pain, but he wasn't in that much pain, and I think, I don't know. I think I said goodbye to him. I think that was God's way or whatever of me being able to say goodbye to him. But then again, it could be some memory that my brain made up to feel better about the whole situation. I am a very logical man. But naturally, you want it to be the spiritual thing sometimes or something else. Doesn't mean it can't be both. Maybe science just hasn't caught up and figured it out. Another thing I want to tell everybody is I try to respond to every single comment that is left on Soft White Underbelly on Facebook for the video from Soft White Underbelly or any of the videos I did. Know that I respond, okay? If it's not there, it's sometimes YouTube, like, it keeps deleting it or it won't let it post. But know that I care enough about everybody. I know what it's like to not be listened to or to be lonely. Trust me, I'm responding to every single comment. I care. So those are the experiences, some of the experiences I had at the hospital with coma dreams or whatever it was. It didn't feel like a dream to me. It felt like I was in a different realm or something. For a long time, I thought that it was a near-death experience in some way. But then a friend recently told me, well, did you see any dead people? And they hit me. I was like, no, I didn't. So maybe it wasn't a near-death experience. And I don't even know if I died. I received all the paperwork from the hospital that shows every single little thing they did. But I gave it to a lawyer to get SSI, which was a nightmare too, let me tell you. Thank God I got it, but it took a very long time and it was a pain in the ass. So I don't know if I died. I'm I know that I was on life support 100% for a while. I couldn't breathe at all. And then slowly but surely, I could breathe 15% on my own, 20%, 25%, etc. And my family had no idea because they all showed up and they were waiting for me to leave the ER to go to ICU. They didn't notice that when they were in the ER, the guy who was handcuffed to the bed was the guy who hit me. I think he had a couple scratches and that was it. I think he complained he didn't feel well, so he could go to the hospital to kill some time because he didn't want to give his blood, or he didn't want to do the alcohol test at the scene. And I had no idea around that time just how my life would turn out and where it was going to go. I was still in denial. The few days hadn't passed yet to where I saw my son's toys on the floor and knowing that he was never going to touch them again. He was such a big part of the house and so full of life, so him not being there, there was a big shift. Well, I guess I'll leave that at that. Once again, if you want to support me in the channel, the information's in the description. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments. It's really cool to know that I have some people out there that are commenting and I can talk to them, and I hope none of you ever go through what I went through. And if you have went through what I went through, I'm so very sorry. I know how much it sucks. Maybe in the next video I'll talk more about pain management or something else. Once again, fill up the comments. Tell me what you want me to talk about and I'll have a conversation about it. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good one.